I should have realized something was off the moment Daniel told me to smile more before we walked into his parents' house for Thanksgiving. The lights were warm. The table was flawless. Margaret had polished the silverware like royalty was coming. 21 relatives filled the dining room in Columbus, Ohio, laughing over football and sweet potato pie. To anyone watching, it looked like the perfect American holiday, but I've been married long enough to know when perfection is just a stage. Daniel's hand rested on the small of my back, not affectionate, just firm enough to remind me to behave. I had worked double shifts at the hospital all week, barely sleeping, barely breathing. Still, I told myself, just get through dinner, keep it calm, don't say the wrong thing. Across the room, my 16-year-old daughter Lily caught my eye. She gave me the smallest nod, and somehow, that tiny gesture felt like a warning. I had no idea that before the night was over, everything would change. For the first hour, everything felt like a carefully rehearsed play. Margaret floated around the dining room in her cream-colored sweater, adjusting plates that didn't need adjusting. Robert stood at the head of the table, carving the turkey with exaggerated pride, as if this were a ceremony instead of a meal. My brother-in-law Jason poured wine and told the same jokes he'd been telling for 10 years. Everyone laughed at the right moments. And Daniel, he stayed close to me. Not lovingly close. Strategically close. Don't mention the overtime, he murmured under his breath as Margaret approached with a tight smile. Mom thinks family should come first. I know, I whispered back. I wasn't planning to. Margaret's eyes scanned the dishes I had brought. Oh, Evelyn, she said sweetly, lifting the lid off the container. Store-bought rolls? I forced a polite smile. Yes. The hospital's been short-staffed. I've been covering extra shifts. Her eyebrows rose just slightly. Well, I suppose we all make choices. Daniel's fingers tightened briefly at my waist. There it was. The signal. Jason chuckled from across the table. You're still working those crazy hours, Evelyn? Daniel says you practically live at the hospital. Daniel laughed softly. She's very dedicated. The tone sounded supportive. The meaning wasn't. I could feel Lily watching from the corner table where the younger cousins were seated. She wasn't eating much, she was listening. Margaret began passing dishes around. In this family, she said casually, we believe holidays are sacred, no matter how busy life gets. Her words hung in the air like a verdict. I swallowed. I agree. I just didn't want to leave my patients without coverage. Daniel leaned toward me, smiling for everyone else. You always have an explanation, don't you? It wasn't loud. Not yet. But it was sharp. I tried to laugh it off. It's not an explanation. It's just reality. Robert cleared his throat. Well, let's keep politics and work stress off the table tonight. It's Thanksgiving. I'm not talking politics, I said gently. Daniel's smile stiffened. Drop it, Evelyn. The room didn't fall silent. Conversations continued. Forks clinked against plates. The football game roared in the background. But inside my chest, something tightened. I told myself what I had told myself for years. Stay calm. Stay agreeable. Don't escalate. Margaret poured more wine into my glass than I had asked for. Relax, she said. You look tense. I'm fine, I replied quickly. Daniel's hand pressed into my back again. Not hard, just firm enough. Smile, he whispered. Across the room, Lily shifted in her chair. She wasn't pretending to scroll anymore. Her phone rested face down beside her plate. She was watching her father, and she wasn't smiling. Dinner moved forward, but the air had shifted. The laughter sounded thinner now. Conversations overlapped too loudly, as if everyone was trying to prove nothing unusual was happening. I focused on cutting my turkey into perfect, measured pieces. Small bites, controlled movements, invisible. Margaret wasn't done. So, Evelyn, she said, dabbing her lips with her napkin. How many holidays have you missed this year because of work? I hesitated. Just Easter. I had an emergency shift. And last Christmas morning, Daniel added smoothly. She got called in. I looked at him. That was because you always put the hospital first, Margaret finished. The table grew quieter. I put people first, I corrected softly. That's my job. Daniel's jaw tightened. Your job isn't more important than your family. I never said it was. but you act like it is. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Robert stared down at his plate. No one jumped in. No one changed the subject. Margaret gave a sympathetic sigh. Daniel works very hard too, Evelyn. A marriage requires balance. I felt heat rise to my face. I do balance it. I pay half the mortgage. Here we go, Daniel muttered. My heart began to pound. What does that mean? It means, he said louder now, you always make everything about you. That's not fair. Oh, it's very fair. The words weren't shouted. They were delivered with that controlled calm that always made me feel like I was the unstable one. I glanced toward Lily. She wasn't eating at all now. Daniel, I said quietly, this isn't the time. You're right, he replied, his voice sharpening. It's Thanksgiving, a day when families show up for each other. I showed up, with store-bought rolls. A few nervous laughs slipped out from the far end of the table. Margaret didn't laugh, she just watched. I placed my fork down carefully. I worked a 12-hour shift yesterday. 3 nurses called out sick. The ER was overwhelmed. I couldn't just leave. Daniel's chair scraped slightly against the hardwood floor as he leaned back. There's always some dramatic reason, he said. It's not dramatic. It's my responsibility. And what about your responsibility here? His voice cut cleanly through the room now. The television noise faded into the background. I'm not choosing strangers over you, I said, trying to steady my voice. I'm doing my job. You're embarrassing me, Daniel said. The words landed heavier than anything else. A cousin at the end of the table suddenly found something fascinating about his mashed potatoes. Jason reached for his wine again. Robert's carving knife rested untouched beside his plate. Margaret cleared her throat but said nothing. I felt something inside me begin to crack, not loudly, not visibly, but like fine glass under pressure. I'm not trying to embarrass you, I said. I'm just explaining. There you go again, Daniel snapped. Explaining. His voice was no longer calm. The room went still. Even the children stopped whispering. I became painfully aware of 21 pairs of eyes. And for the first time that night, I realized this wasn't just tension. It was about to become something else. The shift was almost invisible at first. Daniel stood up slowly, pushing his chair back with deliberate control. The sound of wood scraping against hardwood seemed louder than it should have been. Excuse me? I said quietly. You heard me, he replied. His voice wasn't shouting. That almost made it worse. I'm not attacking you, I said carefully. I'm just telling the truth. The truth? He let out a sharp breath through his nose. Your truth. Margaret looked between us. Daniel, maybe. No, Mom, he interrupted without taking his eyes off me. She wants to explain herself. Let her. The room felt smaller somehow. The air heavier. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I don't understand why this is a fight, I said. I worked overtime. That's all. Daniel leaned closer. You make me look like I can't provide. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? He demanded. I glanced around the table. No one spoke. Not Jason, not Robert, not a single aunt or cousin. They stared at their plates, at their hands, at the wall, anywhere but at us. It was like watching a room full of statues. I contribute to this family, I said, my voice barely steady. Financially, emotionally, I try. That's enough, Daniel said, and then he moved. It happened so fast that for a second I didn't register it. A sudden, sharp motion, a forceful reaction born out of anger. He struck me. Not a wild, chaotic act, just one decisive, humiliating moment that echoed louder than any shout could have. My head turned slightly from the impact. I steadied myself against the edge of the table. No one gasped. No one stood up. The silence that followed was suffocating. I looked around slowly, disbelief flooding through me. Margaret was staring at her napkin, folding it and unfolding it again. Robert's eyes were fixed on the turkey as if it required intense concentration. Jason swallowed hard but said nothing. The cousins stared at their plates. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low and tight. You will not disrespect me in my parents' home. My cheek burned, but what hurt more was the stillness in that room. 21 people. Not one of them moved. Not one of them told him to stop. I felt smaller than I ever had in my life. And then, from the corner of the room, I heard the scrape of another chair. Lily stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. And for the first time that night, Someone looked directly at Daniel without fear. Lily didn't rush. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She walked. Each step from the kids' table to the center of the dining room sounded louder than the football game still playing in the background. The room remained frozen, as if everyone had silently agreed not to interfere with whatever was unfolding. "Lily," Daniel warned, his voice sharp but uneven now. "Sit down." She stopped a few feet away from him. "No," she said calmly. It wasn't defiance for the sake of drama, it was controlled, measured. My heart pounded in my ears. "Lily, honey." She raised her hand slightly toward me without taking her eyes off her father. A quiet signal. "Trust me." Then she reached into the back pocket of her jeans and pulled out her phone. Daniel's expression shifted instantly. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Smile," Lily said evenly. "You're still on camera." The words didn't register for a second. Daniel blinked. "What?" "I've been recording since dessert," she continued. "Actually, longer, audio and video." Margaret let out a small gasp. "Turn that off immediately." Lily didn't look at her. "No." Daniel stepped forward. "Give me that phone." She stepped back just as smoothly. "It's already backed up," she said. 3 cloud accounts. Automatic upload. If this phone breaks, the files don't. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't shock anymore. It was fear. "You're being ridiculous," Daniel snapped. "Delete it." "Viewer count is rising," Lily replied, glancing at her screen. "Private link. But not private for long if I don't stop it." My breath caught. "What link?" Jason asked under his breath. Lily answered without hesitation. "A secure stream sent to 2 trusted contacts. If I tap this button, it goes public." Margaret's voice trembled. "Lily, sweetheart, this is family. We don't air private matters." Lily finally turned toward her. "When someone is harmed in front of 21 witnesses," she said steadily, "it stops being private." Daniel's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand exactly," she replied. In Ohio, failing to report domestic violence when a minor is present can carry legal consequences. Robert finally looked up. "Now wait just a minute." "No," Lily cut in. "You wait." Her voice didn't crack. "You all sat there," she continued. "You watched, and no one said a word." The weight of that statement pressed against every wall in the room. Daniel tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "You think this is going to scare me?" Lily tilted her phone slightly so he could see the screen. "It should." He looked, and whatever he saw drained the color from his face. "You wouldn't," he said, but his voice had lost its edge. "I already did," Lily answered. She turned the phone so the entire table could see the small red dot in the corner of the screen. "Recording. Live." "This is not a threat," she said quietly. "It's documentation." Daniel's breathing grew heavier. "End it," he demanded. "I can't," she replied, not without confirming my mom's safety first. The room had gone so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't in control. And everyone in that dining room knew it. No one moved. Not Margaret. Not Robert. Not even Daniel. Lily stood there with the calm focus of someone twice her age, her phone steady in her hand. I could see the faint glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes. Daniel tried to recover his authority. "Turn it off. Now. You're humiliating this family." Lily didn't blink. "No one humiliated this family more than you just did." His face tightened. "You don't speak to me like that." "I just did." Margaret rose halfway from her chair. "Lily, sweetheart, put the phone down. Let the adults handle this." Lily's voice sharpened slightly. The adults had their chance. That landed harder than anything else. Jason shifted uncomfortably. Robert rubbed his forehead. A cousin whispered something that quickly died in the air. Daniel stepped forward again, but he didn't reach for her this time. "You're making a mistake," he said through clenched teeth. "No," Lily replied. "I'm correcting one." She glanced down at her phone briefly. 812 viewers, she said quietly. The link spread faster than I expected. Margaret's hand flew to her chest. "You sent this to people?" "I sent it to people who believe in accountability." Daniel's voice lowered into something colder. "You think this will end well for you?" Lily didn't react to the tone. "It ends well for my mom," she said. "That's the only outcome that matters." My legs felt weak. I could barely process what was happening. Daniel looked around the room, searching for an ally. No one met his gaze. He turned back to Lily. "What do you want?" The question changed everything. Lily straightened slightly. "You leave tonight." A murmur rippled across the table. "You pack your things and you go," she continued. "You do not return without legal clearance. You do not contact Mom except through attorneys." Daniel let out a harsh laugh. "You think you can order me out of my own house?" "Yes." Her certainty was terrifying. "You will sign divorce papers without contest," she added. "No financial manipulation, no intimidation, no dragging this out in court." Margaret gasped. "Divorce? That's extreme." "What's extreme?" Lily interrupted. "Is thinking silence keeps people safe." Daniel's voice rose. "You don't get to decide my marriage. I get to decide what I witness," she shot back. "And I won't witness this anymore." She tapped her screen again. "If you refuse," she said evenly, "this footage goes directly to law enforcement, your employer, and a domestic violence advocacy group that already agreed to review evidence if I ever contacted them." Daniel froze. "You talked to someone?" he demanded. "Yes." "For how long?" "For long enough." The confidence in her tone made my chest ache with a strange mix of pride and sorrow. "You've been planning this?" he whispered. "I've been preparing," she corrected. The room felt like it was closing in. "You have 10 minutes," Lily said, "to agree, or I move forward." Daniel stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Margaret began to cry softly. "This is tearing us apart." "No," Lily said. "What happened before I stood up is what tore us apart." The truth of that sentence settled like dust after a collapse. Daniel's shoulders sagged slightly, just enough to show the shift. 5 minutes, Lily added calmly. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. For years, I had been the one shrinking. Now it was him. "You'd let her destroy everything?" he asked me quietly. My voice trembled, but it didn't break. "No," I said. "She's saving it." The silence stretched. 2 minutes. Daniel's jaw flexed once more, then stilled. "Fine," he muttered. "Louder," Lily said. He swallowed. "Fine, I'll leave." "And?" she prompted. He closed his eyes briefly, humiliation washing over his features. "I'll cooperate. Fully," she added. "Fully." The word tasted bitter in his mouth. Lily lowered the phone slightly but did not end the recording. "You have 30 minutes to pack," she said. Daniel didn't argue this time. He turned and walked toward the stairs. The sound of his footsteps felt different now. Not dominant. Not controlled. Just heavy. Margaret sank into her chair. Robert stared at the wall. No one spoke. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt something I had almost forgotten existed. Relief. The sound of Daniel's suitcase wheels dragging across hardwood echoed through the house like the final line of a play. No one tried to stop him. 30 minutes later, the front door shut with a force that rattled the glass panels. Then there was nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the faint commentary from the football game no one was watching anymore. Margaret wiped her eyes with trembling hands. "I didn't know it was that serious," she whispered. Lily finally lowered her phone. "You didn't want to know," she said gently, not cruelly, just factually. Robert cleared his throat but couldn't find words. Jason looked at me. "Evelyn, I'm sorry." "Sorry." The word felt thin. I stood slowly, steadying myself against the edge of the table. My cheek still stung, but the deeper ache was somewhere else, somewhere that had been ignored for years. "I think we should go," I said quietly. Margaret reached for my arm. "Please don't make permanent decisions in anger." "This isn't anger," I replied. "It's clarity." Lily slipped her hand into mine. We left without dessert. That night, we checked into a small hotel 20 minutes away. The clerk looked at us with concern but asked no questions. Lily stayed close to me the entire time, protective but composed. Once inside the room, I finally sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled fully for what felt like the first time in years. "Are you okay?" Lily asked softly. I nodded, then shook my head. "I don't know," I admitted. She sat beside me. "I had to," she said. "I know," I whispered. "I just wish you didn't have to be the adult tonight." She looked at me carefully. Someone had to be. The truth in that sentence stung more than anything else. The next morning, everything moved quickly. I contacted a lawyer, recommended by one of the nurses at work. I opened a new bank account. I changed passwords. We scheduled the installation of security cameras and new locks. Daniel sent 3 texts before noon. We need to talk. You've overreacted. Don't let Lily manipulate you. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the messages to my attorney. By evening, Daniel's tone changed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to escalate. Let's fix this privately. Privately. That word used to silence me. Now, it sounded like a warning. Lily watched me block his number. Good, she said quietly. Within a week, Daniel moved into his brother's spare room. Within 2 weeks, his employer placed him on administrative leave pending review of conduct policies. He called once from a restricted number. I could lose everything, he said. I held the phone away from my ear and looked at Lily, who was studying at the kitchen table. You already did? I replied calmly, and I hung up. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Daniel's lawyer attempted mild resistance at first, but once presented with documented evidence and witness accounts, negotiations shifted. No public release was necessary. The mere existence of proof was enough. Margaret sent a long email apologizing for failing to intervene. I read it twice. Then I archived it. Apologies without action felt hollow now. 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. Daniel relinquished the house. He signed over joint savings. He agreed to supervise contact if ever requested, though Lily made it clear she wasn't interested. When the judge finalized the decree, she looked at me and said, "You're protected." Protected. It was a word I hadn't associated with myself in a long time. Life didn't transform overnight. There were still therapy appointments, still difficult nights, still moments when I jumped at unexpected sounds. But something fundamental had shifted. The house felt different. Quieter but not tense. One evening, Lily and I stood in the kitchen making dinner together. Next Thanksgiving, she said, stirring a pot thoughtfully. We're doing it our way. I smiled faintly. Homemade rolls? She grinned. Definitely homemade rolls. For the first time in years, the idea of Thanksgiving didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to reclaim. A year later, the auditorium lights were bright and almost blinding. Lily stood in line with the rest of her graduating class. Navy gown pressed perfectly, honor cords draped across her shoulders. The principal was talking about resilience and leadership, but all I could focus on was the way my daughter held her head high. She wasn't the quiet girl at the corner table anymore. She was strong, grounded, unshaken. When her name was called, Lily Carter, the applause rose around us. I stood automatically, clapping harder than anyone, and then I saw him. Daniel was standing near the back exit, just inside the doors. He looked thinner, smaller. The confidence he once wore like armor had been replaced by something else, uncertainty, maybe. For a moment, my chest tightened. Old reflex, but it didn't last. The ceremony ended, caps flew into the air, and families flooded the floor. Lily hugged her friends, took pictures, laughed. Then she saw him too. She didn't flinch. She didn't turn away. She handed me her diploma. Stay here, she said calmly. Before I could respond, she walked toward him. I followed at a distance, heart pounding not from fear this time, but from the weight of unfinished history. Daniel cleared his throat when she stopped in front of him. Congratulations, he said quietly. I'm proud of you. Lily tilted her head slightly. No, she replied evenly. You're relieved. He blinked. Relieved? That I didn't let what happened define me. Silence hung between them. He glanced at me briefly. I've been in therapy, he said. I've changed. Lily's expression didn't shift. That's good, she said. Growth matters. I just wanted to see you graduate, he added. You saw it, she replied. That's enough. He swallowed. I was hoping, maybe someday. Accountability doesn't disappear with time, she said gently but firmly. It stays until it's owned. He looked at me then. I never meant for things to go that far, he said. I stepped forward now. Intent doesn't erase impact, I answered calmly. And apologies don't undo harm. He nodded slowly. I know. For a brief moment I saw something that looked like regret. Not fear, not anger, just regret. But regret doesn't restore trust. Lily checked her watch. We have photos to take, she said lightly. You should go. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't dramatic. It was final. Daniel hesitated, then stepped back. Take care of yourself, he murmured. We are, Lily said. And he walked out of the auditorium without looking back. That evening, Lily and I sat on the back porch with takeout food and her diploma resting on the table between us. You okay? I asked. She nodded. Yeah. You handled that well. She shrugged slightly. Closure doesn't have to be loud. I looked at her, the same girl who had once stood in a dining room and refused to stay silent. You saved us, I said quietly. She shook her head. No, she replied. We saved each other. The sky turned pink and then purple, and for the first time, the past felt like something behind us instead of something chasing us. Daniel had shown up, but he no longer had power. Not over me, not over her, not anymore. The following November, I woke up before sunrise. For a moment, I forgot what day it was. Then I remembered. Thanksgiving. The word used to make my stomach tighten. It used to mean performance, pressure, silent endurance. It used to mean measuring every word before I spoke it. But this year, the house was quiet in a different way. Peaceful. I walked into the kitchen and found Lily already there, tying her hair into a loose bun. You're up early, I said. She smiled. We have rolls to make. Homemade. We worked side by side in the kitchen, flour dusting the counter, music playing softly from her phone. There were no judging eyes, no critical comments, no tension under the surface, just warmth, just choice. Around noon, a few close friends arrived, 2 nurses from the hospital, Lily's best friend from school, and her friend's mother, people who knew our story, people who had stood with us. The table wasn't perfect. The silverware didn't match, but the laughter was real. At one point, Lily raised her glass. To accountability, she said lightly. And to freedom, I added. Everyone clinked glasses. And for the first time in years, I felt something I had once believed was gone for good. Safety. Later that evening, after everyone left, Lily and I sat at the table surrounded by half-eaten pie and empty plates. Do you miss them? She asked gently. I knew who she meant. The idea of them, I admitted. Maybe, but not the reality. No, I said firmly. Not the reality, she nodded. We cleaned up together, moving easily around each other in a rhythm that felt strong and equal. Before heading upstairs, she paused. Mom? Yes? If I ever see something like that happen again, to anyone, I know, I said. She would stand up, and this time she wouldn't be alone. Months later, Lily began her pre-law program. She volunteered with a local legal aid clinic, helping organize paperwork for protective orders and listening quietly as women shared stories that sounded painfully familiar. One night, she came home thoughtful. They don't always know they're allowed to leave, she said. I understood that more than I wanted to admit. I didn't know either, I replied. But you do now. Yes, I said softly. I do now. The scar inside me didn't vanish overnight. Healing isn't cinematic. It's small decisions repeated daily, changing locks, answering unknown numbers without fear, speaking up when something feels wrong, believing that respect isn't something you earn by shrinking. It's something you deserve simply because you exist. Every year now, on Thanksgiving morning, Lily and I bake rolls. Not because tradition demands it, but because we choose it. We call it our Independence Day. Not the day something broke, the day silence ended. The day accountability began. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence protects harm. Preparation protects freedom. The law exists to defend the vulnerable, but courage is what activates it. If you ever find yourself shrinking to keep the peace, remember, peace built on fear isn't peace at all. The moment you document the truth, the moment you ask for help, the moment you decide you deserve better, that's the moment everything changes. Not because someone saves you, but because you finally allow yourself to be saved. And sometimes, that courage begins with one person standing up in a silent room. In our case, it was a 16-year-old girl with a phone, and I will be grateful for that courage for the rest of my life.